Hi, I'm Henry Ford, and this is my wife, Clara.
We're going over to the Menlo Park lab. We'd like you to meet our friend, American innovator Thomas Edison.
Hello. Are you curious about what's inside? Well, come on in.
Thomas Edison was born in Menlo, Ohio in 1847.
He lived there until he was about 7. And then the family moved up to Port Huron. So yes, his early years are there. And Milan rightly claims him as someone who was born there.
His parents sent him to school, but soon pulled him out after 3 months because his teachers thought he was partially deaf. His mother homeschooled him for the next few years.
There was always an atmosphere, if you will, of learning and curiosity within the home. And his parents had books. The home itself wasn't just a blank slate. It was a place where people were discussing things and reading things and encouraging discussion.
In 1871, he married Mary Stilwell.
He was married twice, and he had 3 children with each marriage. His first wife passed away. But, yes, he had a family. I'm not sure he was such a family man. He spent a lot of time on his work. If he was married, he was also married to his lab and his work, as well as 2 wives.
He wanted to do more inventing, so he opened Menlo Park Labs in 1876.
Just shout it out. What do you see? I want to hear your thing. Bottles. What else do you see?
Light bulbs.
Light bulbs. Lots of good stuff. This is what I like to call, when I'm talking to guests and people who come here, this is the heart and soul of Menlo Complex. Why? Because this is where Thomas Edison and his guys are doing a lot of the research, a lot of the work that needs to be done.
Trying to work on a large scale and trying to work with really, really good collaborators. And he's not the first person on earth to have thought of working with other people. But working at this kind of pace, with the right equipment and the right kind of drive and the right chemistry, because they had a lot of fun. It was hard work. They'd work really, really long hours, well into the night. But they knew how to have fun doing it, and I think that's become a model for many, many companies and inventors nowadays.
Shortly after, he invented the phonograph in 1877.
This invention would record sound and play it back. He invented the phonograph in the Menlo Park lab. The phonograph records a voice with a vibrating needle inside the machine. This needle would also play the sound or voice back.
When they were almost done, one of the workers yelled at the phonograph in frustration because it wasn't recording. Edison came and got some tinfoil. He wrapped it around part of the phonograph. He turned the crank and sang, "Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. Everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go." He cranked the machine backwards, and everyone began to laugh because they heard Edison's recorded voice. The machine was a success.
So, of the phonographs that were made during 1879, and I believe 100 of them were made in production, the Henry Ford now has 4 of the 9 that are left in the world. So you're able to see 2 of them, and then the others are in the museum.
I have far more respect for the person with a single idea who gets there than a person with 1,000 ideas who does nothing.
He kept going and worked on a safe electric light bulb. It took him 2 years, but he did it. He completed the light bulb in 1879.
Before the light bulb was invented, most people used gas lights, but gas lights were dim and dangerous. Thomas Edison invented safe electric light bulbs. He also worked on ways to safely supply electric power to businesses and homes.
He tried many different kinds of filaments for the light bulb. Some did not work. When an invention didn't work, Thomas Edison would try and try again until it worked. Thomas Edison was so desperate to make his invention for the light bulb work, he even tried human hair for a filament.
Thomas Edison was not the only person to try making the light bulb. He was still credited for the light bulb because he invented a practical, long-lasting light bulb for home use.
One of the things that Edison had a really good sense of was how well something had to function in order to be, how to put it, saleable. You know, so that if you sold somebody something, it would continue to work. You could make things work in a laboratory, but once you give it out into the real world, things get knocked around. So that was one of the secrets. He had this sense of what it took to make things that were going to work and stay working.
Sarah Jordan Boarding House was built in 1870. It was originally built in Menlo Park, New Jersey. The building materials they used were wood and plaster. It had 2 floors, a big covered porch, and outhouses behind the main house.
Unmarried employees of the Edison's lab lived there and would sleep 2 or 3 to a bed in 6 rooms on the 2nd floor.
Back in 1879 and around in that whole 10-year span when they were working at Menlo Park, the gentlemen would have had their own space. So all of Edison's workers that would have been staying here, this would have been their sitting room. Whereas Sarah, Ida, and Kate would have had their own because it wouldn't have been very proper for the guys and the girls to be in the same area.
This house was the first home in the world to be lighted by Edison's newly perfected electrical system.
The Sarah Jordan Boarding House got its lights on December 31st, 1879.
Patents are legal rights to the intellectual property, such as an invention. The patents show a diagram or image of the invention. It is similar to blueprints. Thomas Edison had many patents. The patents show an image or model that shows its parts and details.
So when Edison was creating a patent, he would have his inventors create models of his patents for him. So there's patents for the telephone, there's patents for a fire alarm.
You know, he had 1,093 patents. A lot of those were for very, very small improvements to machines that nobody really thinks much about nowadays, like stock tickers and telegraphy apparatus. He was simply naturally curious. Again, I think most kids are. But he was one of those people, I think, that when he became curious about something and explored it and kind of got a handle on it, to understand it, he would keep going. He'd try and find out more. And he would find out then about other ways things could be applied. He invented so many mechanical things, like telegraph apparatus.
A quadruplex telegraph is a message receiver that records a voice and transmits it to the other person listening.
Edison's electric pen was the first electric motor-driven appliance product in the United States.
After that, he invented the motion picture machine, or kinetoscope.
The kinetoscope, at a certain level, you can almost see it as a kind of logical continuation of some of the other things he'd invented. I'm thinking particularly of the phonograph for sound recording.
The kinetoscope was designed for films to be viewed by one individual at a time through a viewer window at the top of the device.
Edison's first movies were 90 seconds long or less. Around 1889, Edison picked a team of muckers to work on motion pictures, headed by William Kennedy Laurie Dixon. They built the strip kinetograph, an early movie camera. Edison's muckers filmed boxing cats, a butterfly dance, a boxing match between 2 world champions, an Indian buffalo dance, somersaulting dogs, and much, much more.
The zoetrope was a machine that showed the excitement of moving images before people went to a cinema. This was the beginning of moving pictures. It was invented in 1834 by William Horner, and Edison used it as a model for his kinetoscope. The zoetrope works by presenting a bunch of pictures at a very fast speed.
Your brain cannot process the individual pictures, so it makes them into one moving picture. A new image appears each time a slot passes by, and that creates the movie.
Thomas Edison came up with the technology to record film. So Edison had to invent a movie studio that had basically glass on all surfaces. Not only that, he put it on a big track so that it could follow the sun, because they were only dealing with sunlight at the time. Even though he was the one inventing the light bulb, it wasn't bright enough. He figured out how to record film, but weirdly, they did not figure out how to project it onto a screen for a few years. The only way to view them, you'd have to look through a box, and you're looking at that tiny little piece of film going by you with a slot sort of like this in a box.
Do I have to hold it down? No. That's doing it wrong.
His experiments were funded by a number of people and a number of companies. There were big companies like Western Union who were in the communications field. There were individual investors, some of whom owned their own companies and some of whom just put in money themselves. So it was a variety. Plus he did. Edison, when he made money doing what he was doing, often put that money straight back into the laboratory. You do get a sense that experimenting and exploring was perhaps at least as important, perhaps more important than making money. He had that curiosity, he had that kind of drive. So money was almost a side effect.
Work started to slow down for Edison, but not that much. Some of his other inventions include a talking doll, a storage battery, and Portland cement.
Hi everyone, Thomas Edison here. I hope you enjoyed learning more about me. They called me an American innovator because I was curious, observant, intelligent, artistic, a risk taker, determined, persistent, unconventional, visionary, motivated, and collaborative. What's your story? Do you have any of these traits? What will you do about it?
Thomas Edison died on October 18th, 1931, at the age of 84.
And he died from complications of diabetes. And he'd had some problems with that for a number of years. He was also quite old by then.